Good evening again, ladies. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules to join us for tonight's session called The Power of Delegation. During our time together, we'll define delegation, why delegation is important, and the obstacles to delegation, and how we can delegate effectively. First of all, delegation is a key element of leadership and management, transferring responsibility from the leader to a member. It's about empowering your members while you as a leader can continue working on club strategic planning and other tasks. It's about involving your club members. But it's important to note that delegation should be accompanied by giving the right task to the right person with clear communication and understanding. The member must know what the expectations are. So just don't say to Susie Jones, you're in charge of this committee. You give her the whys and the wherefores so she has something to go by. Knowing your members is important in delegation. Pair a new member with a seasoned member, giving the new member a chance to learn and the seasoned member a chance to impart her knowledge. Why is delegation important? It increases efficiency. It develops skills. It improves teamwork. Remember, teamwork makes the dream work. And we are all about making the dreams of women and girls happen. Empowerment. It brings a collaborative culture to your club, working together to create a strong, healthy club. When you delegate tasks, you create followers. Despite having many benefits, there are also obstacles to delegation. Leaders hesitate to delegate for some of the following obstacles, and I know you can all know this. The belief that they are losing control of the task. They don't totally trust the member's ability, so they hesitate to delegate important tasks. Lack of time. Some leaders feel it is faster and simpler to handle it themselves. How many of us have done that? The big one, perfection. No one can do the job as well as they can. Is that another good one, ladies? Do we see this in our clubs? Our presidents delegating committee chairs with the needed information, guidance important for them to succeed in producing positive results. So how do leaders delegate effectively? We begin by choosing the right person for the right job. When you're looking to fill a chair of a committee, look to the strengths of your members and delegate accordingly. Communicate clearly. Make sure the person understands what you are asking them to do, why they are doing it, and what the time frame is. Provide the necessary resources. Give the person the information they need to do the job. Set deadlines and expectations. If it's the Live Your Dream Committee, make sure they know the deadlines, and the expectation is the club will have recipients. Monitor the progress. Keep updated on how they're doing. Offering assistance if needed and be available for questions or concerns. Just don't throw it at them and say, go for it, people. Keep in touch, answer their questions. Above all, Always acknowledge and appreciate the efforts that your team members make. A thank you for a job well done builds confidence and appreciation. I'd like to close with a quote from Eleanor Roosevelt and then open for any questions and comments. A good leader inspires people to have confidence in the leader. A great leader inspires people to have confidence in themselves. Comments, questions? Quiet, lady.
I have a question for the group, which is just kind of from the outside looking in. What does a leader that obviously delegates well look like versus a leader that does all the work themselves? Like, how would we know? Like, what's the kind of the visual or emotional or whatever cue that someone's maybe not delegating appropriately?
The ladies are all thinking.
I think you would have the members not engaged if they're not helping or doing something. If somebody's taking charge of, the main things you do, and they're the new, especially the new members, I think they wouldn't feel engaged in the club.
You'd probably feel like the stress or the pressure from someone trying to do everything. Because of that perfection level or the not able to give up the control. That's what I usually see in people that don't want to do that, as I feel that stress,
Well, too, I noticed that when you see that you have a leader that wouldn't delegate or train the replacement, when it comes time to get new officers, nobody has the confidence to step forward because they weren't entrusted with responsibilities to get a taste of what it's like to be a leader.
Every new member has to start someplace. So in order for them to move up to president, the leader, when they join the club, has to entrust them with a small job to begin with. This way they can make their way up the ladder, so to speak. We can't expect new members to come in and all of a sudden dump everything on them. I think a good leader takes them, I don't want to say by the hand, but almost, and starts them. I can remember back, and I'm going 40 years back, ladies. I had a good club president in the first club I belonged to. And the first job she gave me was assistant treasurer. She said, I think you can do this job. I thought, okay, I guess so. So I started like assistant treasurer and sort of moved my way up, therefore. The same in the region. My first committee was the nominating committee. And Lorette Wood was the chairman of that committee. And she said, I think you need to run for treasurer. And I'm like, me? She says, yeah. And I thought, well, somebody else will run and I'll never be treasurer, and that's okay. Well, sorry, nobody else ran, and I was treasurer a couple times down the road. But you start small and move up. And I realized that a lot of the clubs don't have the numbers to take this slow approach. So it makes it harder. The new members come in and they're thrown into jobs that maybe they're not prepared for. And they get, I don't want to say they get burnt out, but they get discouraged because they don't know what they're doing and there's not a lot of people to help them. So we live in a different world where our members don't have a lot of older members, or I should say seasoned members around them to help. And that's important. Every seasoned member needs to give their all to the new members. I guess I'll put it that way. They need to make them feel welcome. They need to make them feel like they're important, and they are important for the growth of their club and our organization.
It's funny, Barbara, that's almost like a segue to our next workshop, which is Power of Inclusion. And it is all related, right? It really is. It's like you have, they really do go together. And everything everybody said, I 100% agree with. The two things I was thinking of most were what Chris said about, when you have a person that's so stressed out, like let's say it's an event or something else, and it's probably a likelihood that they're carrying a lot of the weight. And then I was also thinking along the lines of what Maria said about, and this isn't to put anyone down that's been in this position, because I've been in this position too, of nobody wants to come in behind you. But if we're not delegating enough and people don't have the confidence to do the jobs, then I think that's an outward, visible thing you can see happening. So hi, Charlotte, see your face. I've seen you so long. So yeah, and I struggle with this a lot at work, and all those things you listed at the beginning, Barbara, those are all me, 100%. Perfectionist, control freak, it's faster to do it yourself, all of those things. And that might be in the moment that's kind of short-term thinking, I suppose, because if you're not building confidence and teaching skills and preparing people to do a job, you're today being perfect and getting it done your way, that means you're going to have to repeat that year after year if you're not bringing people along. And I don't think any of us want to be in that position.
How many of you are club presidents now or have been club presidents?
Everybody.
Just about, yeah. How many of you are like in your second or third year? Or how many of you did 2 or 3 years?
Debbie did 3. Retta's done more than 1.
I've done a
This
couple
has
of
done it.
2.
Yeah.
This is my 4th go.
I did 2 years in my first club and a year and a half in my new club. So,
Chris, this is your fourth go?
Yeah.
Bless your heart.
I'm kidding.
Who's done it more than 4 times? Anybody?
Yeah, right?
I've
Can
only
we get
done
a
it
prize?
3.
I'm the baby.
Oh, you're not the only baby.
Thank you, Julie.
I just have a quick comment. If I could share really quick, I was listening, sorry, I was eating dinner, but Barbara, hi, everybody. I wanted to just say that I observed something very interesting last week that, when you have someone that has taken on a role, maybe chairing a committee or something, let's just use it as an example of a committee chair. And they've proven themselves, they've proven themselves and that they do a good job. You can rely on them and count on them. What I observed last week was someone doubting that person, and they absolutely brought it. And I didn't doubt this person at all. Like, they had a suggestion to do something different. And I was like, that's great. You're thinking outside the box, 100% support what you're going to do, because she had already proved herself to me, like I knew I could trust her.
Mm-hmm.
So I think sometimes, but because it was a different idea in a program, in a dream program, there was pushback. And I think that it's really important to bring awareness just to the fact that if you have a rising leader in your club that has proven herself to be trustworthy and done a good job, has a track record, be more open to some ideas that are different. Because as it turned out, it was this huge success, what she did, right?
Charlotte, was that the one where you went to the school?
Yes.
I saw that. That looked really good.
Yeah.
Looked
Charlotte.
awesome.
Shameless plug for 2 workshops from now, which is the Power of Innovation.
Charlotte, you guys are lucky that the school allows you to come on campus and do stuff like that.
For sure. We don't have our Dream It Be It on campus yet. That's a work in progress. But this girl, this member asked the, the counselor, whoever it was that she communicated with, and and they were receptive. So that, yes, that was a blessing. But what wasn't was the fact that that member was crying, almost in tears, over the pushback before with our own members. Okay. So what she's proven herself to me time and time again. She's solid. She has excellent ideas. They're outside of the box, but I don't question it really. And I just think, encouraging the leadership thing, we have to be careful that we don't discourage people, It's like
We do, because we have to think outside the box. Because everything inside the box isn't always working.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Charlotte, I've heard that from many clubs, and I won't
know.
name
It's
anybody, but a couple of you are on this call that have mentioned, like, you have these committee chairs that have been doing a program or an event or for so long, and they think they have it dialed in, and you have someone that comes along that wants to participate and maybe do something a little different, and there's this major resistance to like,
It's hard.
you got it down, don't mess with us.
Right.
So
Change is good.
One thing I would say is one way to find out how you're doing is bring some new members in. We had 5 new members this year, and I know Julie felt it, but I felt like they were a little critical of some of this we do, but they're all powerful business owner women. They had their way they like to do things. They've been in other clubs, and they didn't understand some of the stuff we did. There's that fine line between why we do it, the way we do it, because there's certain parameters, and we could change some things. And what's happened and mostly it was for our classy bag affair. There was, we have a couple ladies that own that. Well, they think they own it, and they do a good job. Help is sometimes resented, like you guys said, because it's not like they would like to do it. They think it should be done a certain way. But Julie, bless her heart, and I got together with the one lady and said, we have to do it different. We don't want to lose these members. We got to include them in something. So she sent out a spreadsheet, sign-up sheet, and assigned these ladies all picked things that they were going to be responsible for. One lady who complained a lot about the way we did something, she's now in charge of that. So I'm hoping that this keeps them involved. It's a big event, and we always need help. We can't just have 3 or 4 people do that. So, but it showed us, I think at least it showed me some of the areas we could use some help in inclusion.
well, I think when you delegate, kind of maybe to Charlotte's point, but to Debbie's as well, you can't delegate and then dictate how it's done at the same time, right? You can give, this is how I work. Like you provide the objective, and then they figure out how to get there. And if they want help and want suggestions, that's great. And if they don't, if they're meeting the objective, I'm like, I don't care how you get there. I mean, obviously we have some, I wouldn't say we have a lot. I mean, we have a lot of, or some like regulatory guidelines, especially when we're talking about Dream It Be It. I mean, there are certain parameters we need to work with it, but by and large, it's the objective we're after, right? And there's no reason to dictate how anything gets done, or even when, as long as everything's ready to go day of, whatever. And it's really hard, not to give over instruct it. Barbara, I think it's one or the other. You either say, here, do it with no guidance, or you say, I'll help you, and then you tell them exactly how to do it. And that's also not delegating. So it's finding that balance of giving them the objective and really light guidelines to get there, and more if they need it or ask for it.
One thing I think, if you're a leader who delegates, because I'm a big fan of delegation, you need to support who you delegate to.
Mhm.
So when the masses start coming up and saying, this is new, this is different, even though you might like be nervous about the direction this person's going, as long as you're guiding and monitoring and you've given them the responsibility, you need to have their back. Because the worst thing somebody needs is you undermining them after you've given them trusted them with something.
I learned a kind of management approach a while ago called tight, loose, tight, which is the beginning, you have a little bit tighter control because someone's new and you need to provide some instruction and background. Then you let them loose. And it only becomes tight again if they're struggling or ask for help or just completely failing. And it's finding that happiness, right, in that middle ground of, you've instructed and provided guidance and opportunity. You're there on the back end if needed, but that whole middle ground where people can just do what they, whatever approach they have and however they want to do it with the end goal in mind. It's been helpful for me to kind of remember, especially more so at work, but even with club members, like we kind of all know that one person you say, please do this, and it's done, nothing, no questions asked. And there's that person you ask to do it and they say they will, and then they fall off the face of the earth. And it's as a leader knowing how to deal with each individual person and how much to oversee and how much to just let them go.
That's why you need to know your members. You need to get to know them.
Yep.
And having in-person clubs is good. It works easier. Our online club is a little more difficult to get to know each individual member in the same way. And so, that's why, at conference, we all got together and almost every member came, and it was a really bonding thing, even though we only meet online.
Mm-hmm.
It worked, and we got to know each other better that way. And I think we're a better club because of that. It sounds kind of corny, but we got to know each other, and I think we'll make it, even with all the troubles we've been having. I think we'll make it.
Well,
But it's more difficult being online because you don't have that interaction face to face. So it takes a different kind of person to be on an online club. But it's working for us.
And I
And-
think Carrie's idea about quarterly lunches type of thing, I think that'll help also.
I think so too. And it seems it'll be a good thing being centralized down where she lives,
Mhm.
because it's two hours from either direction. So from our furthest people,
that's nice.
or 2-3 hours, it'll work. And I think we have it planned, in May? Was that, Maria, was it in May or something like that?
I believe so.
Yeah.
I think she was finalizing it. She needed to find a location.
You'll
And
see
at the
each
same
other
time,
more
we're
often
gonna
than
make
we
it a
do.
fundraiser. We're gonna make it a fundraiser at the
Oh, that'll
same
be
time.
fun.
Have a restaurant that if you buy the food, the organization gets the credit for it. So we're gonna make it a fundraiser at the same time. That's gonna be interesting, but
No harm in trying.
no. Yeah.
I mean, can anyone share, like, sometime you thought you were doing the right thing, delegated something, trying to be a great leader, and then it just went south? And how'd you manage it and recover?
I think generally to recover from anything, you need to follow the organization's guidelines and chain of command. So if you see something going south, don't think you need to resolve it by yourself, because then it could explode and get bigger. That you go to the guidelines and you go to the chain of command and try to head it off at the pass.
Mhm. Yeah, I guess I'm thinking back to Barbara's point about, you have to check in periodically, you have to track. And if, just like anything, the earlier you intervene, the better chance you have of heading off a disaster, I think. And how would you think, I just keep throwing out questions, sorry. So something that I think could be difficult is, as leaders, we don't want to just delegate, right? We want to know that we're in the trenches with you. Like, you have a committee, you do all the work, but I'm going to be there. I'm the president. I have to be at everything. And so how do you manage that kind of, this is probably more like a professional work question. Like you want your team to know you're willing and able to be in the trenches with them. And yet you also want to convey a level of trust, and you're not spying on them or anything. Like, I think that's a delicate balance.
I think it's just like the periodic check-ins with the team. Like maybe not going to every meeting, but just emailing, or like at work, we just message each other like, hey, I know you're working on this. How are you doing?
Mm-hmm.
Type thing. If you need help, just let me know. I mean, that's how I handle it at work, at least.
I think recognizing them on the agenda. So when you have an agenda, even if it's just your business meeting or a special meeting, put their name on that category. So you're calling their name to do the report, but you're there to oversee it because you're conducting the meeting. And that way they don't feel like their ideas are being stolen from them, but yet you get at least monthly or bi-weekly, depending on if you have board meetings, you're getting an update and that person feels like they still have their project.
Yeah, that's a great point, Maria, because we don't want to delegate and have people do all the work and then take all the credit for ourselves. So definitely give people credit for the work that you're giving them. And I've seen that. I mean, we've probably all been on the wrong end of that too. It's like, wait, I did that, but yeah, definitely.
Well, I had something like a long-term project I had delegated to somebody at one quarterly meeting for a different organization. And when the agenda, it was a long-term project, so we hadn't been checking in. When the agenda for the second quarterly meeting came up, she saw her name on the agenda and remembered and got it all together in time, that 2-week window for the meeting. It gave her, it reminded her that she was on that long-range project. And then it gave me a check-in too, when she did her report, that she was doing what she was supposed to be doing. So it kind of works to help that way too, accountability.
So how do you deal with, like, I want to delegate to someone different than I delegated to last time? How do I not hurt that person's feelings? Like, for example, let's say you wanted to replace a committee chair just to mix things up, or give someone new an opportunity to do something.
I think that's what you might say, is tell them that they did a great job, and they did such a great job, you'd like to put them in another committee so they can do another great job, and gives a new member a chance. And I guess you'd have to word it, but if somebody's really invested, they're probably going to be a little hurt. But I think if you spin it right, you say, take these great skills and do it over here.
I think this year we've been trying to, every meeting we bring up, let people know if you're interested in, sorry, never mind.
Okay, go get some water. One thing I was thinking of, sorry, I hope you have some water. You can put your arms up a little bit. That might help you. But one thing I've learned from work is that a lot of times we spend a lot of time on people who are having trouble, or people who are like our troublemakers. And we don't spend enough time on the people who are just there in, day in, day out. And so one thing I've learned is you know, to really be thankful for the people who do things well and to encourage them. And, you know, if that has to be like a little 1 minute, 2 minute at your meeting, like, you know, so-and-so's done things well, like a kudos. Because like, because what happened, what the reason why I always remember this is sometimes we spend so much time on employees when we're getting ready to fire them. And then someone who's worked for you for 5 to 10 years, they're like, I'm out of here. You're like, what do you mean you're out of here? You were like the best employee. You come all the time. You do everything. But we never really appreciate them. So I really appreciate Barbara G for bringing this to our attention, because you know, when you said the title, I was like, oh man, we know this, but I mean, it's all good things to remember. And I just think that we need to, you know, people who are doing things really well, pair them with other people, so other people can learn, and then just be grateful for them. You know, give them a shout out. That's what I think. That's what I got. Thank you.
Thank
Okay,
you,
I'm going to
Lynette.
try this again without having a coughing attack. So what we're going to try, I don't know if it's going to work really, but is if somebody's been the chair, asking them to be the co-chair and
Yeah.
train somebody that coming year or half year and move into it that way. If they're, you know, if they have ideas that they've started that haven't really come to a conclusion and they want to be sure those are followed through on, then if you say, well, let's have so-and-so be the chair, but you be the co-chair and be sure they know how to, you know, implement your ideas and also they don't get put aside. We'll see if it works.
I mean, I love that because that is the best way. If you have the luxury of time, and you know, when we're talking about committees in our clubs, we generally do, but that don't, A, you're not throwing somebody new to the wolves, and B, you're recognizing, hey, I have so much confidence in what you've done. I know you can impart your knowledge to the next person capably. And I mean, that feels good too, right? I mean, it's a gentler way of saying, I want somebody else to do this for a while.
Yeah.
I mean, we do it, you know, despite the fact that, you know, someone like Debbie was club president 3 years in a row. And others have been in that situation. Generally speaking, we do rotate our board members. We may recycle ourselves into different positions, but that's what we're talking about, just at a bigger scale. So why would we not also rotate through committee chairs and give other people opportunities to do things? Just because they're not elected.
Right. We have I have an interesting dynamic in my club because a lot of the members are, it's like very divvied, right? These members will be on the board. These members don't want to do any of it, right? So because we only have a whopping 10 members, that causes an issue. So, but what we've been doing very subtly is having those that don't really want to do anything work on like partial committee something. It's like, oh, would you just do this one little contact, or would you go and research this one little piece of the bigger pie? And they usually, that kind of breaks that, you know, it's really not that bad of it. You know, it's really not that bad to help with that committee, you know. So we've been doing that and find, you know, kind of breaking the ice a little bit and not just throwing them in the deep end. So,
and do you think you can gradually just give them a little bit more and a little bit more,
yeah,
so that they'll feel like, oh, this isn't so bad?
Exactly. It's
Yeah,
like
that's a
the
great
drip,
strategy.
the drip method, right? Just kind
Yeah.
of drip a little bit. Hey, whatever, you know, you got to do whatever you can do. And because
If it
you know,
works, it
when,
works, yes.
you know, when there's, like I said, when there's only so many members that are willing to take on some responsibility, it gets to be, we've got to figure out another way. So this is really, really effective. And then we also team people up. Like, you know, we needed a treasurer. We convinced somebody to be a treasurer, and the outgoing treasurer is now shadowing her and is
Yeah,
basically
that's
the
good.
treasurer for for that year as well. She's just behind the scenes working with her and helping support her. So
Julie's like attached to my hip.
Do
I
we
really
also have
strugg-
the opposite problem? Do we have people that just always want to be on the board and not give other people the chance? I think we have those people too. And that's slightly different than not being a good delegator, but part of delegation also is allowing other people to lead sometimes, even though you're capable and you may be the best person for the job, that sometimes it just need to step aside, let other people try.
Yeah, you make a really good point, because so many of the clubs, as they have difficulties building membership again, if you end up having all of the same people do all of the same jobs every year, the ones that you can bring in are less incentivized, I guess, to get involved deeply. And it's kind of a closed door kind of thing. That's a tricky one for smaller clubs, I think.
I agree with so much that has been said, back, like Lynette's, the need for recognition and making people feel important, and Linda talking about the co-chair thing, and Chris, with what she said. And I see this whole thing as a path to successorship. I see a struggle with leadership in our clubs personally. And what you guys just talked about with, there's a need for people to step down from maybe a committee chair, even though they're the best person for it and we know they are. But there is that need because we need to give someone else a chance, and people develop things, and there's always room for improvement. Perfect example would be when I joined, it took me a couple years, but I decided, we could improve our holiday luncheon, and I saw it as, anyway, and we made some big changes, but at the same time respected the way that some of the part of it was run. But when it was my turn to let it go, because I was I was going to be club president and I didn't need to chair that committee, turning it over to somebody else and then staying, which was fine. But then a couple of years later, it became to another chair and I found myself back on the committee. And then I realized, maybe I shouldn't be on this committee, right? I mean, I could be on it, but I had point being is they were making some changes. I already thought we had evolved. It was so much better. We had doubled the money. We had evolved this thing, right? But you know what? We had the very best holiday luncheon we'd ever had last year. And I thought it was going to be a flop, So, and that was several years later. I mean, but every year it always seems to evolve and be better. So people bringing in new leadership, new ideas, and that's how we develop new presidents and things, Anyway, but also making people feel important and giving them recognition, like going back to what Lynette said, I think that is the biggest problem is we don't make people feel like, definitely pointing out, I don't know if it needs to come from the president or who, but the board really needs to acknowledge those people that are doing a good job. Anyway, and make people really feel, it should be an honor to be in a leadership role. It should be an honor and you should want to do that. And then when your time comes around, you get loved on and you get, all kinds of good things, right? And I like to say everybody needs to take their turn, Everybody has leadership qualities. They just not everybody's qualities have been developed, but they can be, Anyway, if they want to be, not everybody wants to be president, but anyway.
I agree with you, Charlotte, and several of you have heard me say this, but if you're the president or a board member, you have to present yourself as loving your job, whether you do or not. If all you do is complain or say, I have to do it again, or I guess it's my turn, these things we say, I've said them, we've probably all said them, like, we have to be really cautious. say it at home, say it to a close friend, but don't let the club see that you're anything but loving your job, especially as president, because we do want people to want to. And I think a couple people, I think Linda heard me say this. This is my message in the next 2 years. You want to be president while I'm governor. I'm putting this out there. Yeah, I haven't figured out what that
She
means
did
yet,
say that
but
to me.
I'm going to figure out what this means. Like, I want people to want to, and I'll figure it out, but with Charlotte's help probably. But yeah, we have to be very careful about how we present ourselves in front of our club. And delegating is actually something that can help a lot with that, because we're the kind of figurehead, but it doesn't need to always be the president that's up doing something, because that also scares people. They think it's too big of a job. And if they see, you know, yeah, the president kind of guides, but isn't always the front person, then that also becomes less scary. Maybe doesn't seem so daunting of a job.
I was just thinking on the other side of the remark I made about small clubs and the difficulty of, you know, getting offices filled and committees and all that. There's also the upside where people who come in, we have, you know, a couple of recently added members, and they've become essential. So they kind of, they realize that they're needed, and it's kind of bringing them in. And I anticipate that one of our members will be an officer next year, I'm pretty sure. And so it's another one of those making hay when the sun shines kind of things.
I think we need to get back to a culture of growth and leadership too. One thing I've noticed post-COVID is before that, people would take on a chairman's role with the intention of getting the experience, making the name for themselves to be a local officer, serve all the positions, learn everything, and then advance up to a regional level and then advance up. Somewhere along the line, we've lost that with trying to get people to rotate in. We need to keep our treasurer with the impression like you're treasurer, and aren't you going to look forward to being secretary? And when you're secretary, so then that way, by the time you get to president, you know what your team is dealing with. And if you've served all those offices, you do. And then your chairman, I would like to give this event to this newer member because I would like you to come up and serve on the board. So you need to get people back in the culture of, I'm not just doing this one thing for the rest of my life. I'm doing this to prepare me for the next thing. And I think across organizations that I'm in, I see that as a major hurdle for leadership. And then you get your first year members coming in and like, okay, I'll be president, but yet they haven't experienced all the nuances of what it is to do that. And I don't know, it's probably going to take a 10-year plan to get that system back up and running. But I think we need to start having that culture again.
That is very good. Good job.
It is good, and it's true. Like if I were to say to someone, I'd like you to think about being president a year from now, and then I will, you know, we'll talk about it on whatever. That's I feel like if we are able to have that much foresight, we might be more successful in saying, you know, I need you to be president starting next month. And you know, I've been dealing with this as I, you know, trying to fill committee chairs for the next biennium. And I've learned two really important things. One, don't be afraid to ask. I'm always like, well, what if they say no? And just had this conversation with myself, just ask. And if they say no, they say no. It means the time's not right, right? Or maybe there's something they'd rather do. Chris, I asked her to do something. She said, I will, but I really think I'd be better at this. And I'm like, you're right. I love that idea for you. So, you know, I've really, because I am the worst offender. All those things Barbara listed, I'm a control freak. It's my title. I'm a controller. I could do it better. I can do it faster. I can do it the way it needs to be done. I'm all of those things. I'm the worst offender. And this has been a really growing exercise for me to reach out and not be afraid to ask, because I don't have a choice. But to, you know, not just ask. People like to be asked. That's what I've learned, and they're honored. And even if they say no, not right now, or no, I'd like to do something different, that's still information that you can use.
Good job.
Thanks, Lynette. This is like deep, serious conversation. This is great.
Good.
I just have a question for this group, and I know all of you, so it's easy to ask. Is there anyone here that felt like they were sort of strong-armed into taking on a leadership role?
My first time as president,
Okay.
way back in 2000. When I was only 3 years into the club.
So you're only 3 years old?
No, yeah, right. 3 years into the club, and I was a delegate and then president. I mean, it was like, and it was a big club. It wasn't a small club. And they said they thought I was ready.
Did you feel ready?
The second term, I was more ready than the first term. But there was a lot of support, you know.
Yeah.
And back then we didn't use computers.
Yep.
You know, it was still paper stuff, and
Yep.
so yeah, 2000 and 2001. So it was yeah, a little strong arm, but you know, at least they were there to support.
Where'd Chris go? There you are. You jumped to the corner.
I know, I was trying to find the hand thingamajiggers. Oh, there it is. Anyway,
now you went down below again. I mean,
I know, I don't even
all
know.
over the screen here.
I know, sorry. I came in a time when, speaking like directly to what Maria was saying, when it was expected that you go through the certain chairs, like you come in as a delegate or you come in as a director. I think we started as a director, and then you would move to delegate, and then you would do secretary or treasurer, and then you would do, so it was an expectation that you're going to be president. And I think just personality wise, it was expected of me to be president. Did I want to necessarily do it? No, because it's kind of, you know, it kind of is a big responsibility, and you're learning a lot and all of that. I don't know how many years I was in the club, but it was a stair step, and it was like in the board directives, you know, you're going to walk through these pieces, and it's not like you have to do secretary and treasurer. If you wanted to do all of them, that's wonderful. I never was in the treasurer thing, not my gig, but it was just an expectation.
I feel like
I don't know if that's good or bad. I'm just saying, is strong arm the right word? No. Well, yes, I guess it could be. Maybe by default at this point, you know, it's like at default, you know, going in that at some point you're going to reach that.
Okay. That's a
responsibility.
little different, but I mean, or those who have repeated terms and maybe weren't expecting to. And again, that's just all a sign of us not doing the groundwork, right? Or sometimes things happen. I mean, I've been in my club 3 months, and they said, we want you to be president. And I thought they were insane. But what I said was, I will, but I'm going to do it my way. Because I didn't know anything. Been in the club for 3 months. I didn't know anything. So, and I did, and I got crucified for doing it my way. But I'm like, look, you can't ask someone to be president and then not give them freedom, right? Enough freedom to kind of find their own way. So
I have to say that I had not done any other offices, but I have been the Dream It Be It chair for our club and for the region. But I didn't really know a lot of, you know, the specifics about being president. I have to say, Barbara, you are wonderful and patient with me when I ask you all these, because the parliamentary stuff I didn't know. But I found that, you know, people are really willing to help you, and, you know, if you just ask the questions, sometimes you don't know what you don't know, but I think, you know, there's a lot of people that are willing to help and support you, I think.
Mhm. Good job.
Anybody else just jump right into being president without having done any other job?
I would kind of like to go back and do one of the other jobs because I do feel, well, our situation was unique in that we're a new club, so all
Right.
of us are in the same boat. But even in my previous club, I'd served as a director for Seroptimist in that club. I never served as secretary or treasurer, but I was in other clubs with some of the ladies, and they were like wanting to jump you right up. And that was part of the reason I was like, no, you know, I can't. And then the new online club came on, and because I can't be at lunch meetings all the time. So I felt like, you know, I can't do that, but yet you're telling me that you want me to do this, knowing it'll be hard for me to do that. And that was really hard. And so that's why when the online club came on, I'm like, okay, well, if I do want to grow, I'm going to have to go in a format that I can work with.
Mhm.
But I think when we look at these people, we need to acknowledge too, especially on the old club, was that sometimes it's just not their time. They may have the abilities, they may have the thing, but it's something there is just keeping them back. But I do wish I would have served secretary, treasurer, been a committee chair, and I'm looking forward to that. So that if I ever do walk into a president's position again, I can know that I have more of the foundation needed. And I think for our organization to be stronger and grow, and for our new members to see a structure of leadership that's got a strong foundation, we need to get more of that to where they see consistent moving up.
One thing I just wanted to say, when I first few months of being in Seroptimus, for our SPR conference, someone couldn't go. So I was a new member and I went to conference. And for me, going to conference and seeing, you know, all the awards we give and hearing all those testimonials, it just like warmed my heart so much. I like drank the Kool-Aid from the very beginning. And so for me, I think sometimes in our clubs when we have like a lot of petty stuff, I think like, you know, if there's any way people in your club can, I mean, like not everyone can go to Ireland and Japan and all of those cool places like that, but at least try to get as many people as you can to go to the conference if they can't go to the conventions. For me, that's what does it for me, because you know, like, you know, we've all, I don't know, maybe Judy, you're going to have something in the future about pettiness, but you know, I think like,
It's coming.
Like when you, it's coming. So I think, but I think when you go to those conferences and you see like the work that's being done, I think it just like, you know, you just pull yourself together. And I thank you. I personally have never been president. I do other things and maybe one day, but I just really appreciate going to conference. It just kind of settles me and helps me to get through. And so I think like for people who are having a hard time, or I think if you could just like do a certain fundraiser just to send people to conference and get them fired up again, I think that's, to me, that's very valuable. And I just wanted to point that out, especially like Mary, you said your club is really small. And I don't know, we have something at Christmas time. You could do it at a different time where we have like, we call it a goodie auction, where we just raise money to send people to conference. And so I think just for just to get people fired up. So I just wanted to say that you know, if you're having a hard time getting people to do, because like once you're there, you're like going, I'll do anything. Oh, I don't think I would be treasurer. No one would ever choose me to be treasurer. But I think if you ask me to do something after I've been at conference, I'm like, I'll do anything for Seroptimus.
Duly noted.
Like, Okay, I'm gonna tap off.
Busted. Busted.
I have witnesses.
Yeah.
And a recording.
Yeah.
Recording. I can play it back for you.
That's funny.
It's funny. Right. Anything else, Barbara?
No, it's all been very interesting and informative, and I thank all you ladies for all your good input.
And we thank you for putting this
Yes.
together. I appreciate your time as always, and you
Can I
lead
say
by
one thing?
example.
Can I say
Yes.
one thing to Charlotte?
Yes.
Thank you, Charlotte. I just talked to Gloria. And so, they had, their club's Twain Heart, they're giving 7 awards this year. Yeah.
Wow.
So, she's just having a little trouble with the portal, and so I told her to call Sarah and get it straightened out. So, but they're giving 7 awards this year.
Wow.
Great.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Thanks for sharing that. That's so
Yay.
good.
She said she thought she had my phone number in her phone, but she couldn't find it. So
That's okay. You know, that's okay. I told her I was glad she texted me and didn't, rather than emailing me, because I reply a lot quicker via text. And
yeah,
I was like, I can get that number for you. Just hang on.
yeah.
And I know I messaged you about Patterson, and they have one, and so you should be getting that. So
Yay.
That's
Yeah.
better than last year where they didn't.
That's right.
That's
right.
good. And I know Riverbank has already submitted their
Yes.
award.
Excellent.
So,
Yes. Yes.
Wow.
I got the email the other day. They already submitted, and they got their $1,000 and all of that. So
Right.
Excellent. Excellent.